It was game, set and match Rune. He defeats Novak Djokovic, the 6-time champion, after coming back from a set and triple break point down. It was an incredible match and I can't wait to go into it. So let's break down the reasons which led, nearly said Novak, which led Rune to the victory. My name's Henry Tui, welcome to Post-Match Breakdowns and subscribe if you love tennis. I'm working really hard to keep producing the best tennis content I can, so subscribing would mean the world. But let's get into it and start off with Djokovic's kind of serve return and rally balls. Because Novak broke extremely early in the first set for a 3-1 lead after 2 Rune double faults. But they did feel somewhat forced because Novak's return was applying so much pressure to Rune's serve. Rune had a very pacey first and second serve. He averaged 126 miles an hour on the first and 102 miles an hour on the second in the first set. And that would usually give him a really big advantage, obviously. But against the best returner of all time, Rune's weapon was completely neutralised. Almost every point on Rune's serve was played from a neutral baseline rally because just Novak found so much pace, depth and consistency off of the return. Also, Novak's serve did so much damage in this first set. By the end of it, he had won 88% of first serve points and 70% of second serve points. He just didn't really give Rune a look in for this first set, and he only lost 5 points on serve, which was just a ridiculous number. And overall, he was just rock solid behind his serve return and in the rallies, because he had more winners and less errors than Rune in this first set as well. It was an extremely impressive version of Novak, and he closed out the first set to love 6-3, which was a very one-sided, impressive set. But Rune definitely wasn't content to just let Novak overwhelm him, and to his credit, he did lots of things to try and break up the rhythm and momentum that Novak had built, mainly with net play, because he went to the net 11 times in the first set and won 9 of those 11 points. And in a set where you only win 18 points, which he did, that's half of his points coming from the forecourt, usually behind a huge forehand approach shot or his serve. And it was a very effective pattern of play for him, and it did cause more errors from Novak as he really did shrink the court down when he was at the net. And kind of Rune's class in the forecourt just translated to his whole game into the second set. He really grew into it, and I think he settled a lot of nerves from the first set, because he served first in the second set, and he was love 40 down when Novak missed a sitter backhand, and this was really a turning point in the match because Rune eventually scrambled very well and held serve, and uncharacteristically, Novak, who is usually a mental rock, clearly just let it get to him. He played a very loose service game in the next game. He had a few unforced errors, served poorly really, and Rune broke, and that just kind of opened the door, built Rune's confidence, and yeah, he dug himself out of the hole so well, and then breaking, he really fired up the crowd, who in turn fired up him, and that really seemed to elevate his game and his kind of belief in the match. He belonged there, and he could win this thing. And what particularly seemed to improve after this kind of elevation was his serve, because he really started to do some damage with it. In the first set, Rune won just 5 points in the 0-4 shot category, which is extremely low, and it just means he wasn't getting any short balls, particularly on his forehand, to gain the upper hand and dictating with the rallies. But in the second set, however, by 3-1, he had already had 9 in the 0-4 shot category. He was serving way better. He was hitting his spots with pace, and the spots he was aiming for were out wide on both the deuce and ad court. He looked to push Novak out wide to get those short balls to dictate with, but also to aid him with serve and volley because of Novak's compromised court position. And he was just having to play so much less from neutral, which is where Novak is probably the best in the world. But even when he did play at neutral, Rune had got his iron at this point and kind of settled his nerves. And by finding a way to net as often as he could, he was having so much success there. But also with this net play, he started to incorporate the drop shot extremely effectively. He played very delicately, but also a whole general theme for the match, fearlessly. Everything he did fearlessly. He continued to play extremely well when he had the chance to serve out the second set. And I would just like to say that this was also just a kind of pattern that happens in kind of every Novak game if he's kind of down in the score. Novak is a player that forces you to earn it. He makes you work for the big moments, and he will always make you play an extra ball and force you to earn it yourself. And And by God, did Rune earn it just throughout the whole match. So when serving out for this match, he hit a drop shot winner, a backhand winner, a service winner, and forced an error from Novak. And that was the set, 6-3. He just, every time he stepped up to the line, hit just such confidence, fearlessly, that word again, fearlessly, everything he did, and he executed it so well. Everything he tried, really. And just, yeah, in those huge pressure moments, he was just fearless and played such huge tennis, and he leveled the match at 1-all. Now, heading into the third set, it's natural that any player's kind of purple patch will eventually end. And it did seem that Rune's lack of experience led him to cracking under pressure. He hit a double fault to gift Novak the break for 3-1 in the third set. But it was really world-class scrambling from Novak, which conjured up those break points initially. And just when Novak seems to have elevated his level himself and gained some breathing room in the match, Rune immediately broke back. Luck did initially keep Rune in the game, but from then on, superb defensive scrambling from Rune, forced errors from Novak. And on break point, a pretty terrible approach shot from Novak gave Rune an easy pass, and that was the game. And yeah, it just seemed that Novak's level had definitely dropped. It did seem he had the beginnings of an injury. He had the trainer look at a thigh, his thigh. That was obviously just a bit of a niggle that didn't feel good. But although it was on serve, it did seem that Rune was the one carrying the momentum. And that momentum did have huge implications because Rune became the player who was doing more damage on the return, which is never really the case. And he was applying so much pressure, and it really came to a head at the 5-all game with Novak serving. Where was I? Yeah, so fantastic scrambling again from Rune, forced errors from Novak, and eventually Rune broke for 6-5 and a chance to serve out the championships. But as I said earlier, for the second set, Novak never goes away, and he went into his classic lockdown mode where he doesn't give anything away and he forces you to earn it yourself. And just like in the second set, Rune just emphatically did. Breakpoint after breakpoint was saved by Rune, and he never backed down or shied away, rolled in his serve or anything like that. He played with absolute confidence and conviction in his own game. He saved 6 break points, but only needed 2 chances on match points. And after a 17-minute game to serve out the championship, he did 7-5. And overall, Rune is the Rolex Paris Masters and is the new world number 10. An incredible rise in the rankings for him and a phenomenal week. It was an incredible match to watch and break down, mainly because it was really the first time I've properly sat down and watched Rune play, and not just from highlights and what's online. Because I've heard that he's a complainer and is a bit volatile and a bit of a brat at times, and at times he was, unnecessarily so, to his box, just a bit too far, definitely rubbed up some of the crowd the wrong way. But at the same time, on the flip side, he showed a lot of mental fortitude and grit when he needed it most. He never shied away from the occasion and played, once again, fearlessly. That is the key word to take away from Rune's game. It was fearless. And that last game was potentially the most dramatic of 2022 and the season. Well, I mean, the proper season's over now. Obviously, we still have the Nito ATP finals coming up, where I don't think he has direct qualification because he's now the world number 10. But I think if any player is injured or pulls out, then he will get a slot. But he has huge weapons and a huge career in front of him. Congratulations to Novak as well. Unfortunately, quite a damning stat for him was that he only won 2 of 12 break points, which is pretty poor for him. But there's only so much you can really dig into that because Rune just played so well in those high-pressure situations, and he won 3 of 3 break points. So he really just took it to Novak. But it was a great week, and Novak did play very, very well in this match. And it was such a difficult year in his career, banned from so many tournaments and just difficulties like that, but more titles on the way without a doubt if he continues playing like this. But that wraps up my analysis. A lot of work goes into these videos, so subscribing would mean the world. But thanks for watching, guys, and have a great one.